Hello. In this video I want to talk about problem 3.3 from chapter 12. And of course it's about a monopoly, and in this problem we talk about group price discrimination. And the story is that the monopoly sells in two countries, and resale between the two countries is impossible. So that means that the monopoly can price discriminate between the two countries. Country 1 has the following an inverse demand function, and country 2 has this inverse demand function. And the marginal cost is 30 no matter where the good is sold. And the question is, what are the profit maximizing equilibrium price, quantity, and profit in each country? All right, so the first thing we just want to make sure we understand is what are the rules here. And the rule is that with price discrimination, you will set marginal revenue equals marginal cost in each country. All right. Don't write very well. Each country. So we can just do each country separately, and we'll find what the answers are. So I'm just going to go ahead and let's do country 1 first here. Country 1. So, of course, we know what the inverse demand function is. So I'm just going to go ahead and write that again. And then the first thing we need to do is find the revenue for country 1. So that's just price times quantity. So that's going to be 100 minus Q1 times Q1. So that's just, of course, 100 Q1 minus Q1 squared. And then we take the derivative with respect to quantity to find marginal revenue. So we get 100 minus 2Q1. And we notice, of course, that when we have a straight line demand curve, the marginal revenue is always the same intercept, twice the slope. We're going to set that marginal revenue equal to the marginal cost. So we have 100 minus 2Q1 equals the marginal cost, which in this case is equal to 30. And we can easily solve. Q1 is 35. And we can use that to find what P1 will be. So in this case, you take the quantity and charge as high a price as you possibly can, which is given by the demand curve. So the price will be equal to 100 minus Q1, 100 minus 35. P1 is equal to 65. And then we can calculate the profit just for fun here. So we have 65 minus the average cost. Of course, the marginal cost is constant here. So the average cost is 30 times 35. Which is just 35 times 35, 1,225. So here's our profit. And in country 1, what we have just done, of course, let me just quickly draw that in a diagram. We were given a inverse demand function that looks like this, starting at 100. And then we had our marginal cost, which is a 30. And then we found the marginal revenue, same intercept, twice the slope. And then from here, we found where the marginal revenue equals marginal cost, and that gave us our quantity, which was 35. And then we went up to the demand curve to figure out what we can charge these consumers, which turned out to be 65. And then we calculate the area of this here, and we found that the profit is equal to 1,225. So that's what we have done. I'm going to go and do country 2 here. So here, just to remind you, the inverse demand function here is 120 minus 2Q2. We're going to use the same rule. Set the marginal revenue equals marginal cost in each country. So the first thing we have to do is find the revenue in country 2, which is P2 times Q2. All right, so 120 minus 2Q2 times Q2. 120 Q2 minus 2 Q2 squared. We take the derivative with respect to Q to get 120 minus 4 Q2. So we took the derivative there. We set that equal to our marginal revenue, which is still equal to 30. We then get, 4Q2 equals 90. Q2 equals 22.5. All right, so our P2 is just plugging that back into our inverse demand function. So it's 120 minus 2 times 22.5. 120 minus 45, 75, and then we can calculate the profit for, the firm in this market. 75 minus 30, so that's price minus average cost, times our quantity, which is 22.5, and that gives us, I used the computer or the calculator before, 1012.5. All right, so here what we have done, again, we had an inverse demand function, we had a marginal cost. All right, maybe I should label these. We found a marginal revenue curve. Then we set that marginal revenue equal to marginal cost to find our quantity, 22.5. We went up to find the price, 75. And then we calculated a profit, which is the area of this rectangle, which was equal to 1012.5. All right, so that's what we've done. Actually, that was so those are the questions. I want to do another one here. What if imports were permitted, so we could not price discriminate? So I'm going to go to the next slide to look at that one. All right, so if imports were permitted, then if there is no transaction cost here or transportation cost, we cannot price discriminate as a monopolist, because then you could buy the good in the cheap country and then just sell it in the expensive country. So there'll be some arbitrage possibility here. So what we're having here, I just want to be a little bit careful about it. So what we're going to have to now, we have to view the whole world as one market. And since the two demand, so when we're going to look then is for any price, how much would you be able to sell? And that's going to be the sum of the two demand curves. So, as long as price is over 100, you can only sell this good in country 2, so it will be something like this. But then when it hits 100, you can start selling it in both countries. So if this was it, so you would have to add the other country's quantity to it. So you're going to have a bit of a kink in the total demand curve here. So what we're going to be looking at here, we're just going to assume that the price will be less than 100. And that's going to be the case. So what we're going to do is just find our marginal revenue curve. So it's going to be something like this. We're going to know what the marginal cost is equal to, and we're going to be looking for, this quantity and this price, and then we're going to see what the profit is. All right, so that's going to be our plan of attack. All right, so the first thing I have to do is find total demand. What is the total demand across the two countries? All right, so total demand will be Q, which is the sum of quantity 1 plus the sum of quantity 1 and quantity 2. So I'm just going to go carefully here so we know, or maybe was it 90 or 100? So it's 100 here. So we have P1 100 minus Q1, and P2 is 120 minus 2Q2. So in order to get quantity, I have to solve it for Q1 and Q2. So Q1 is equal to, 100 minus P. And since we have one market, I don't have to write P1 because the price will be the same in the entire world. And Q2 is going to be equal to 60 minus 0.5p, right? And now if I put these together, total quantity is going to be equal to 100 minus p plus 60 minus 0.5p, which is equal to 160 minus 1.5p. All right, so that's now we have the quantity for, well, this is the demand, total demand curve for the entire world, country 1 plus country 2. All right, but then we want to find the marginal revenue curve, so you can set that equal to marginal cost and find the optimal profit maximizing quantity. Of course, we know that revenue is equal to P times Q. So I'm going to change my, so we have this total demand curve, and now you have to find it. I'm going to put that in terms of an inverse demand function. So that's going to be equal to 160 divided by 1.5 minus 1 divided by 1.5 Q. All right, so I'm just changing that. Let me... So we have, that's equal to 106.67 minus 0.67 Q. All right, so given that inverse demand function, I can find my revenue function. Which is, of course, 106.67 times Q minus 0.67 Q squared. Take the derivative with respect to quantity, and you get the following. Marginal revenue function. I'm going to set that equal to our marginal cost. All right, so it's going to be my third step here. So 106.67 minus 1.33 Q equals, and the marginal cost here was equal to 30. And therefore we have 1.33 Q equals 76.67. Quantity is equal to 57.65. So that's the quantity we're going to sell in the entire world. You can plug that into our total inverse demand function. So 106.67 minus 0.67 times 57.65. Price is going to be equal to 68. I'm rounding it off here, but so 68.04, say. And then, of course, I'm going to calculate my profit. 68.04 minus the average cost, which is the same as the marginal cost when the marginal cost is constant and we don't have any fixed costs, times the quantity. So let me calculate that. That's equal to 2,193.27. All right, so let's just see if it looks like we did it right. So the first thing we want to check is the price. We would tend to hope that this price will be in between the prices we had when we price discriminate. So in the other example, we had price in country 1 being 65, right? And the price in country 2 was 75, so that matches. This price is in between those. And then we would think that the profit when you cannot price discriminate would be less than the profit when you can price discriminate. So let's see how much money they made when they price discriminate. They made 1,225 in country 1 and 1,012.25 in country, 0.5 in country 2. So that's equal to 7322, 2237.5. And that is, in fact, this number here is higher than this number. So everything checks out. So as you know, I like to check my answers to make sure I didn't do it wrong. Or at least I have a higher probability of having done it right if everything checks out. All right, thank you very much.